At least him unmuted. Hello and welcome back to LearnPianoLive.com. My name, of course, is Jamin, but more importantly, we have with us tonight Levi.
That's me.
That's him. And you've played in jazz festivals around the world, Australia, Monterey, anywhere there's a jazz festival, you've played there. You've been in Downbeat magazine,
Yeah.
which is the place I saw you most recently.
That's right.
How many times have you been in Downbeat?
Well, that I know of, maybe 3 times.
But the paparazzi are all over, so you never know.
Well, I
when
didn't know
you're-
I was in that issue until you
Oh,
said
really?
something. Yeah.
Okay. You've played at the Sydney Opera House.
Yep.
Bob Mintzer, Bob Brookmeyer.
Good guys.
Good guys. You played with the Sacramento Philharmonic, and yeah. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Guy. I got a bunch of questions here. The Colossus West,
Right.
which of course,
Yeah.
which was originally just Colossus in the
Yes.
East.
Yeah, there was one Colossus. It was run by 3 composers. One, I'm included in those 3. And then one of them moved back home to Iowa to teach high school, and I moved out here. And so the guy who stayed back east told us we should start a Colossus in Iowa and Sacramento. And I said I would only do it if the guy in Iowa did it, and then he did it. And I was like, all right, now I have to do it.
Cool.
So we have our first show coming up on May 4th
May 4th at
JB's Lounge, which is at, I think it's the Clarion Hotel, which is right next to Arden Fair Mall, right on Arden, and I think that's 80.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arden
Yeah.
80.
Yeah, if you play or listen to jazz in Sacramento, you know JB's Lounge. So,
Right.
Yeah. So, and if you're not in Sacramento, then it's time to buy a ticket right now to fly to Sacramento.
Better be there.
By the way, I feel like I'm way louder than you. Could you move your mic up a little bit? And I've got like this stupid air traffic controller mic on here.
Weather on the 10s.
That's right. All right, cool. So these first ones are just like, I guess, lightning round questions because a lot of people want to know them. You could probably Google them and find out. But you're here. So favorite song?
Favorite song? Ooh, that's a tough one. I'll just say what I've been listening to now. It's a song called Bad Self Portraits by a band called Lake Street Dive.
Wow. All right. Lake Street Dive.
Lake Street Dive.
All right, cool. The age when you started?
It started what?
Music, playing, taking lessons, let's say officially.
Okay. Officially started when I was 6. I started on taiko drums.
All right. And then added what when?
Saxophone when I was 9, then started writing when I was 15 or 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
On your own, or was it a teacher that told you should?
I started just kind of for fun. I was in I think it might have been a sextet or a septet, and the piano player and I wrote and arranged a lot of the music. So I kind of got started that way, and then the next year, when I was 16, I did my first big band arrangement, which was of the Earth, Wind, and Fire song "Shining Star."
Okay. Wow.
And my teacher was like, "Oh, bring it in, we'll read it." And then I talked to him later. He's like, "Yeah, I was surprised. It was pretty good." Thanks.
I guess that's encouraging.
So then the next year, I don't know how I did it, but I somehow managed to write 9 big band charts that year for the big band at my high school.
Okay.
And
So how did you know where to start with arranging?
I don't know. It just happened.
No, that's why you're here. We
Yeah,
need these answers.
Well, I've been playing in a big band since I was in 7th grade. So when I was that 12 years old?
Playing sax.
Playing saxophone. I played baritone saxophone in the middle school jazz band.
Okay.
So I kind of had some experience being in the middle of all of that. And I listened to music all the time. I was really into funk and old soul music. That was my favorite. So when I got into high school, I really got into Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind, and Fire and Bill Withers and all those guys. Which is why my first big band arrangement was Shining Star, because that was, at the time, my favorite song. I was like, I could probably do this for a big band. I was like, yeah, that little guitar intro thing, that would probably work for trombones. So it just kind of worked its way into how could I translate what I was listening to into that instrumentation?
Wow.
Because I've been playing in that kind of orchestration for a while, so it just became a part, more just an exercise in translating something that was more electric
Right.
into an acoustic setting with, what was that, 13 horns and
Yeah.
a rhythm section. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
So that's how that started.
All right. So the instruments you play.
Mainly saxophone,
Okay.
but I do clarinet and flute too, dabble in the piano, because most composers, it's nice to be able to play some kind of chordal instrument, either keyboard or guitar. I can't understand the guitar, so I picked up piano.
All right.
I
All
know,
right.
Yeah.
Equipment. All kinds of equipment questions. So
Okay.
what do you play? What strength of breathing?
All right.
What?
All right. From the saxophone, I have a Selmer Reference 54, which is a modern saxophone that's based on a vintage style of making saxophones, the Selmer Mark VI horns,
Right.
which are legendary. Selmer decided to make horns that were built in the same style of the heyday, the golden age of the Mark VIs. So that's the kind of horn that I play on. I just switched to a Meyer mouthpiece. I was using it when I was younger, and then I was using a Morgan mouthpiece, which I loved, but it broke, so I had to use something else, so now I use a Meyer, and it's working out pretty well. I don't
Tip
know.
opening.
Not sure. I think it's in my case, but I think it's a 7M, 7 medium chamber.
Okay.
And then I use V16 reeds, which are Van Doren brand, 3.5. I was using 4s, but I don't play that much anymore.
Right.
So now it's got to be ready out of the box.
Right. Cool. All right. Which is harder, sax or piano?
For me, piano.
Good answer at learnpianolive.com. You're working on the hardest instrument. All right. I'd say sax, but okay. Cool. So why piano?
I don't play it as much, so and on saxophone you're really only dealing with one note at a time.
Right.
Piano, there are a lot of notes that you can work with at any given point.
Right.
So that's why it's good to do some kind of instrument that has that capability when you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm also not that coordinated between all 10 fingers.
Right.
I can do saxophone because, I've been doing it for a long time, but piano, just for some reason,
Okay.
sometimes I'm great.
Right.
Sometimes it's just really going well.
Right. How long ago did you start piano?
I never actually took lessons on piano. It was just self-taught, like, oh, that's a C.
Right.
And then I just kind of figured out the rest from there. But I started tinkering with the keyboard maybe when I was 6 or 7. I had one of those tiny ones
Right.
my fingers could fit on.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Cool.
That.
Best advice you ever got?
Best advice I ever got, like in any,
Yeah, like
just music related.
don't wear the same shirt 2 days in a row.
Right, yeah.
No, I'm guessing
Shower
they wanted-
daily.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they want something musical.
Musical? Okay. Well, this is kind of related to music, but it was more about choosing the right place to study for college. I got 2 pieces of advice for it. One was go where you're not the best, because that way your peers are going to push you just as hard as the faculty will. And then 2, go where it's the best fit, both in terms of your personality, your style of music, what you want to do. Go where whatever it is that interests you is going to be fostered by the environment. And so I found my way to Eastman, which I wasn't sure if it was the right place, and then about a year into it, I still wasn't sure, and then the second year that I was there, I was like, this is the right place.
And what tipped you off to that? How'd you know?
The guy that I was studying with, his name's Bill Dobbins. He started teaching at Eastman in 1973, I think, and then he retired in 1994, moved to Germany and ran a radio orchestra there, moved back in 2002, I think, and took over from the guy who had replaced him, because he moved to Lawrence University. And the first year that I studied with him, I wasn't really happy about it, but I figured out it was just I'd never had any formal composition lessons before, so I wasn't used to people telling me, that's not right.
Right.
I was like,
Right.
what do you mean it's not right? I wrote it. Of course it's right.
I'm Levi.
I'm Levi. So after a semester and a half, I was like, he knows a lot. He's probably right.
Yeah.
So I started listening to him. That's what changed.
I think that's kind of what college is about.
Yeah, but I'll add on one more piece of advice. It's not college related, but in terms of just making music, was a piece of advice I got from Bob Brookmeyer, who's a legendary jazz trombone player, composer, all that. He passed away a couple of years ago, a couple days shy, I think, of his 82nd birthday, 82nd or 83rd. But the first time I got to work with him, I was in a small group. I think it was an octet, maybe. And I was playing one of his tunes, which is kind of intimidating, trying to play one of his tunes for him.
Right.
Just he's sitting there just watching you. And I hadn't really studied the tune hard enough, and I could get through the first part of the tune, and then the bridge came, and it was like, what? So it was a little rough. So when we finished, he looked at me. He's like, "How do you think you played?" It's like, could have been better, I think. He's like, "Okay, why?" It's like, I haven't looked at the tune enough. He's like, "Do you listen to yourself when you play?" And I was like, "I don't think so, actually."
Yikes.
And he's like, "Okay, well, I think that's your first problem." He's like, "You should listen to what you play, because if you don't like what you're playing, why are you playing it?" The next thing he said was, "If I want to listen to some good trombone music, I'll put on one of my albums."
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So he was a straight shooter, Bob.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. But I took that with me, which is, I should make music that I would want to listen to. Because
Right.
if I don't want to listen to it, why am I forcing other people to? So that's kind of what guides my whole process now, is would I be willing to sit down and listen to this?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Wow. So it's not just about playing technically savvy,
Right.
technically impressive stuff.
No,
but
it's
just,
what would you enjoy listening to?
Yeah.
What would you put this on in your home, on your sound system?
that's good.
Yeah. So that was probably the best piece of advice I ever got musically.
Wow. Would you say that was the most nervous you've been in a performance?
That wasn't even a performance. That was just it was just us in a room with Bob. But then
I would consider that a performance, but
all right, yeah, okay.
okay.
We did have a concert with him later, but it was with a big band, and I had no solos, so I just sat there and just played my part.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, what's the most nervous you've been then in a performance?
The most nervous I've been, I think, was also with Bob. But it was a couple years later. He wanted to play a piece with the Eastman band that I was in. And it was this new piece that he'd written. It had only been played once in Europe on the radio, so there had never been any live premiere. And it was a clarinet feature. And I still hadn't really figured out the clarinet yet. Not that I am a master of clarinet still, but I am better at it now. And the lead alto in the band was offered the solo part, but he's a better flute player than he is a clarinetist. So he's like, maybe you should pass it on to someone else. And so the director's like, all right. He looked at the lead tenor player. He just doesn't play clarinet at all. Really good flute player. For some reason, they were all great flute players.
Right.
And so we were just like, yeah, maybe not. So it was between me and the second tenor player, like, who's going to do it?
Uh-huh.
And so the second tenor player had just started clarinet. And I had technically started when I was a senior, so I had more experience.
Right.
So they're like, yeah, Levi, I think you could do it. I was like, all right, I'll try.
And how did it go?
I made it. I
All right.
survived, limbs intact.
Right.
But I didn't find out until like a month before the concert that, Bob's going to be there for it, and he wants to conduct it. Okay.
Wow.
All right. So they brought Bob out, and I was up there getting ready to play. And he looks at me, you ready? And I'm like,
You're that kid who doesn't listen.
yeah, right. I was like, all right, here we go.
Wow.
Counted it off, and away we went.
All right.
Yeah, so
Wow.
that was probably the most nervous I was.
I don't know I don't know anyone, like any sax players who have really good clarinet experiences, honestly.
Right.
It's all like, no, I really like sax, but I went to college and they forced me to play clarinet for a
Right.
semester.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I play more clarinet now. I play in a couple bands around town. I play with a ragtime band, and I play with a Slavic band out in Davis. So I have a little bit more experience, and I can actually get around it now.
Right.
And I know how it works, and what.
That helps.
Yeah, if something's squeaking and not working, I know it's probably not me now. It's the clarinet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So
That's nice.
yeah.
Cool.
Getting better.
What's the most exciting? And we're gonna have to sort of rush through these because I don't want to take your whole night here. So, what's the most exciting venue you've ever played?
Most exciting venue. There are a couple that stick out in my mind just because of how it sounds in the room. One was when I was in Australia. I was a senior in high school, and we were doing a music festival there. My high school wind ensemble. So we played in the Opera House, but we also played. The jazz band played in a smaller recital space called Angel Place Recital Hall. And we walked in and we sat down on the stage and just like snap, and the acoustics in there were amazing. And I think the concert band also played. We played this whole singer piece, and at the end, it's just this tight chord, and we hit it, and for some reason, everything was just perfectly in tune and synchronized, and we hit it, and it just reverberated in the hall.
That's awesome.
And the conductor went, like, that was pretty sweet.
That's cool.
So there's Angel Place, and then the theater that we played at the Umbria Jazz Festival in Italy. It's this theater that's from the 1600s, amazing space. We walked in the first day and we're like, whoa, and it was really strange. On stage, it sounded just really awkward with the way that everything was coming together. But if you stepped out into where the audience was sitting, it sounded just the most beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We're like, how? It's just like you just turn around, and it's just, all of a sudden it's weird, and it's just this weird oral illusion. But yeah, it was really fun to play there, just because of how old it was and how perfect everything sounded in the hall.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, this one's kind of a two-part here. I'm always afraid to record myself because I'm afraid I'll be ashamed of it someday. How do you know when you're good enough to record?
Well, that's a good question.
Because you have multiple recordings, multiple arrangements on multiple recordings.
Yeah, if you keep thinking like I'm not good enough to record, then you'll never be good enough to record.
Right.
Eventually, you just have to break the seal. Just do it. Because that's, it's kind of like the first time you hear yourself speaking on a recording, like, that's not my voice, that's weird.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the same, very similar with recording yourself playing. Yeah, you might be ashamed of it, but you're only human. If you want to listen to a computer play music, just go ahead.
Right.
So you just have to be able to accept whatever happens will happen. It's not a matter of not caring what comes out. It's more a matter of being neutral to the outcome. Because they're similar ideas, but different shades of the same thing, right?
Right.
Because if you don't care, then it's more of an apathetic, like, whatever. But if you're neutral, then it's a very active, like, all right, this could go well, might not, but we'll see at the end.
Right.
So it's all more of a state of mind than actually, it's not really a tangible, like, am I good enough?
Right.
It's just, I think I'm good
So
enough.
you recommend that this person record something?
Yeah, just record it.
All right.
The hardest part is to just start.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, if you get enough, if you only have one recording out there, that is you, right? And so if you just like flood the world with a bunch of recordings, it's like, that was one of the sucky ones, but I've got 300 others.
Exactly.
And no one can like pin you down like that. That is your one thing too. So so just start recording and record a lot real fast.
Exactly. It's the difference between a pond and an ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You can see everything in a pond, but
Right. Exactly. All right. Do you think about the arrangement as you're writing a song? What's the difference between writing a song, just writing a song, and arranging it with it, or however you want to take that question?
it depends on the piece. If I'm being commissioned to write a tune, then I'm just thinking about the melody and the harmony. That's it. But if I'm commissioned to write for an ensemble and they want an original piece of music, then it all kind of happens at once.
So you're taking this as a job then, not just something that's like flowing out of you naturally because you want to.
I have so many things that I get commissioned for now that I really don't have any time for anything else, which is kind of cool because that means I get paid to do what I would naturally do just on my own.
Free,
But if when I was in college and I wasn't being commissioned for anything, usually the tunes would just kind of write themselves. I'd have some kind of melodic fragment in my head, and I'd just try to work it out. But eventually, most of those would turn into some kind of arrangement, either for a small jazz combo or a big band. One of them ended up being written for full studio orchestra, so it's a big band with strings and woodwinds and percussion. And I did it for that group because I had written lyrics to it, which I didn't want to use because for the the whole recording thing.
Right.
It's like I don't want to. I'm fine with like no words, but if you put words out there, then people kind of really understand the piece a little bit
Right.
on a deeper level. So my roommate at the time, I showed him the piece and I let him read through the lyrics as I played it on the keyboard, and he's like, "You should really use these," and I was like, I don't know.
Can I say they're your lyrics? It's like, so here are my lyrics.
Can I say someone else wrote them?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I talked to a singer, a friend of mine. I was like, would you want to sing this with the studio orchestra? He's like, yeah, sure. So I asked my teacher who directs the studio orchestra, can I do something with words? And he's like, I don't know about using vocalists, because he has this thing about singers. And I was like, I know this guy, he's very good. He's like, well, if you vouch for him, then I guess it'll be okay.
All right.
So, all right. So I was like, all right, here we go. No turning back now. So I pretty much finished the actual just piece, just with the melody, the lyrics, and the harmony. And now I was like, okay, now it's going to be for studio orchestra, not just big band. And he was a baritone, so everything, all the harmony and the orchestration was going to be above him, which is kind of a different way of arranging, because usually the melody's on the top, but in this case everything was flipped upside down.
Right.
So I kind of reworked some of the harmony as I was arranging, because some things work better with strings and some things work better with woodwinds. And so what ended up happening was it was. Have you guys taught? Have your students know about like form of a tune, like an A A B A?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was essentially an A A B A form. But the way that I had orchestrated it, certain things would sound better with strings in one key and better on woodwinds in another key. So what ended up happening was the first A section was in D minor for the strings. The second A section modulated up to E flat minor for the woodwinds. Then the bridge kind of went somewhere different, and then by the end of it, it was going back and forth between D major and E flat major.
Wow.
And so that all happened through the arranging process, not the composition. The original composition was all just in D minor. So they're two sides of the same coin, essentially, but they make you think about the same piece in different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if that answered the question at all, but
it was all good stuff. So we'll pretend it did.
okay.
Right. What's the best instrument to learn first?
Just in general, of all the instruments.
What's the best instrument to learn first? Do you find that some of your skills transfer more than others? Like you end up using your drum skills more or your sax skills more as you're arranging?
Really, a lot of the time I'm actually writing away from any instrument. I'm just sitting down because I can hear most things in my head. And, but I think probably the best instrument to learn first, I don't know if it counts, would be your voice, because like I'm not a great singer, but if I can hear something and then I can sing it, then I generally know what's going on.
Yeah.
And if you can sing something, then you're not trying to force your fingers to play whatever's in your head.
Right.
There's no middleman. You just whatever's happening here comes out through your voice. Then when you start learning an actual physical instrument other than your voice, then the trick is to learn the instrument well enough that whatever you were singing before can come out your instrument, whether it's saxophone, trumpet, keyboard, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an abstract answer to the question.
That's a great answer to the question I've never heard before. Yeah. Cool. I always say piano because that's what we
Right. Learn piano, kids.
All right, we have a couple others here. Some of them overlap, but like I said, I don't want to keep you here all night. Let me sift through these other questions here. If you have questions, then you can put your name and your question in the box below this video. Send those in. We'll get to them in a second. The MP3, Levi has graciously given us one of the songs that he's arranged, and so we've got a short video here of him and his group playing that, and then you have the audio version on your MP3. So check this out. All right, so the rest of that video can be found online at their YouTube channel, and we'll put a big fat link to all of his stuff on our blog there. We've got 3 questions left here, and then whatever we got online. Do you have to know how to play all the instruments that you arrange for?
You don't have to know how to play them, but you should understand how they work so you know the limitations of certain things, because the better you can write for an instrument, the better the musician will play, and the more they'll want to play your music.
Right.
Because you don't want to play something that's technically impossible, because then they're just going to complain the whole time, and no one wants that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Did you enjoy practicing when you were just starting?
No.
Okay. Your parents forced you to, or?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, they did.
Okay. How long would you say it was before you found your own passion for
Before
it?
I really actually decided to. Well, I didn't really start practicing hard until I was a sophomore in high school, because that was my heaviest workload in terms of academics. So I used practicing as a way to procrastinate.
Right. Awesome.
Because if I could practice, then my parents would leave me alone, right?
Right.
So I just didn't do any of my work, and I just practiced.
Right. Okay.
And somehow I made it through.
And then at some point, you actually liked the stuff.
Yeah.
And that was later than that.
It was probably about that same year, because I started associating it with oh, I'm not doing work right now, I'm practicing.
Right.
But then I liked actually the action of playing the saxophone, and I liked getting better. That was what did it for me. Was the more I practiced, the better I became, and the more things I could do. So
some amount of success.
It was just a big cycle of oh wow, if I practice, I'll get better.
Right.
So
yeah,
once I learned
it sounds
that,
stupid, but that's a real realization.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
How's the desire to arrange different from the desire to play? Like how you arrange a lot and seem to have an arranger's mind and an arranger's ear.
I do. Yeah.
Then you also play. So how do you know if you are playing and you just are not an arranger because you haven't tried that yet, or?
That's a really good question. A tough one. I always had the arranger's mind. Back to when I started doing arranging with that first Earth, Wind, and Fire piece. After that, the only thing I could think of when I was listening to music was how would I arrange this for a big band. So I knew immediately, well, not immediately, but I eventually realized that I wanted to be a big band arranger, because that's the only way I could think of listening to music was how to translate it. But a lot of my friends who also arrange and write and play, they're they're more players than they are arrangers.
Right.
So they tend to, when they're arranging, they tend to write lines and things that are fun to play.
Right.
When I write, it's more of like, this would sound really cool. I write textures and atmospheres and moods and those kind of things.
Right.
A lot of people have called my writing more cinematic than anything, more because it's more of like a visualization type thing.
Right.
But when an arranger is more of a player, you can generally tell just by the way the lines that they've written interact with each other.
Right.
There are subtle differences between an arranger's piece and a player's piece, and I can't really put those into words at the moment, but
Right. Like when I listen to your arrangements, like it all sounds like a thing.
Right.
Like it's all like it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a sound that goes together, as opposed to like any of my arrangements sound like a song that I had to stick a band around. You know. So
Yeah, I mean, I have my arrangements that sound like that too. You know, you're under pressure and a deadline and all that. But
no, that's the best I can do.
All right. Well, you got something. That's good. Yeah, when I arrange, it's more of a big picture type thing. I have a general idea of what I want the piece to do, and then it's a matter of how do I do that.
Right.
And sometimes I don't have the answer. There was one piece I was trying to work on. I wrote when I was a senior in high school, and I wrote it in a small group of mine, played it once. I don't think we even played it live. I think we just recorded it, and that was it. But I really wanted to revisit it later to arrange for big band. And so I didn't really know what I was doing when I was arranging, because it was all just like, well, that'll probably work, right? So when I was a sophomore in college, my second year in college, I decided that was a really cool piece. I should revisit it, because I had started doing a big band arrangement of it, but I was like 8 bars in for like 2 years.
Right.
Because I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
So then my second year in college, I revisited it, like, okay, let's see what can happen. And so I was like, okay, well, it can go here, and now it needs to do this. You know, my teacher at Eastman, he used to say, he probably still says it, but his big saying was, follow the music, don't try to force it anywhere. It's our job to, as arrangers, to make it feel as organic and natural as possible.
Right.
So you can arbitrarily set yourself goals, like I think it should be here by this point,
Right.
and then it's more of a fill in the blank and connect the dots kind of thing. And that's generally how I write now, is just
Right.
I have this big picture, and I kind of know where I want it to end up, and I know where I want it to start, so the middle just kind of can go anywhere.
Which it sounds kind of like the same thing you were saying before about like your ear versus your instrument. Like don't produce from the technicalities, produce from what naturally feels like a song.
Let the creativity take over rather than the technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's it for these. Nano, what do we have online?
Yeah. We first question is, I'm new to piano, but how often will I need to be able to arrange once I get good?
That depends on what you want to do. If you want to be an arranger, then there will be a lot of arranging in your future. If you want to just be a keyboard player, then there's no need to really do it unless you really want to.
Cool.
Okay.
Next.
Okay, second question. Who really influenced you when you were younger?
Let's see. As a saxophonist and a musician, I think the first biggest influence for me was Maceo Parker, who's the horn section leader for James Brown. And then as a writer, the first one for me was Duke Ellington. He was just a big part of my musical upbringing, even through college, him and Billy Strayhorn. So those guys.
Cool. Last question. What is your least favorite part of recording an album?
Oh, I have a few. Scheduling is always a nightmare. And then, well, I guess just scheduling, but...
and when you say scheduling, you're talking about, because you're in large groups. You don't just sit in and do your part and get out.
Right. Well, there are a lot of people involved in recording. You have the actual musicians. Sometimes you have extra writers, and then you have the producers, and then you have the engineers. And And then if you want someone else to mix it, then that's another person you got to get, and then you definitely want to get it mastered, which is someone else completely. And if you're trying to be the main producer on the whole album, then you need to be there for everything. So for the last album that I did, the Colossus album, the three of us who ran the band, we were able to divvy up the work between us, which was nice, which was one of the reasons we started the band as a triumvirate. But it was slow going with the mixing because we weren't quite sure what we wanted, my least favorite part is just scheduling, just trying to get everyone's schedules to work out, because we tried to do 2 days of recording, but we could only get everybody for one day.
Right.
So we did one marathon session from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Let's lay it down.
Right.
And then the following month, just every day we did mixing
Right.
and redubbing and overdubbing. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. Real fun.
Next. Nano.
Sorry, my bad. That's it for tonight.
All right, cool. Levy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. You want to go to colossusjazz.bandcamp.com.
Pretty sure that's right.
All right, cool. I will double check it. We'll have a big old fat link on our blog to all of his stuff. Levy, thanks again so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.